In the first 3 weeks, the Winter Inside Releasing the Invincible You Mastery course has talked to us about several things. The first thing was that success is truly manifested from within, and that we find that in order to be a success, we have to master ourselves prior to the time that we look outward to master the things in life that are our needs, wants, and dreams. The first lesson taught us about the control of our body, which is the center of the foundation for who we are and what we do. Then we spoke about getting control of the mind. And in getting control of the mind, we find that the mind is a complicated environment. It's an environment that centers around not only the universal mind, but the internal wants and needs of each individual, the fears, desires, happiness, sadness, every emotion that we could ever deem possible. We certainly find that there are many things that change for us as we start to look forward. So, with all of those things in mind tonight, let's take a moment to move forward. And I'd like to ask each and every one of you here that have been here for the first 3 lessons, what has been the most difficult of tasks that have occurred during the first 3 lessons? Was it controlling the body? Was it allowing your mind to relax? And I don't need an answer right now. I just am asking you to think about these things. Or was it being able to control your thoughts to shut them off and focus them on doing nothing? It's not easy to change for all of us, and it's certainly not easy for us to internalize at times. We find that internalizing sometimes we have to look at the inner self. Oftentimes we don't look at our inner self. We don't think about the internal things because we end up in a situation where we're so consumed with the daily environment, with just survival, that the outside world just absolutely just seems to crush us and combine us and tighten us up. And so I realized that not everyone has maybe taken the time to sit down and really do the things. The first lesson was to get control of the body, and that was to sit erect for 15 to 30 minutes and not move. Be positively still. The second one was to sit erect, and it was to just let the mind idle. And we found out that that had a difficulty to it. The third one was to clear the mind, and that was to just literally take control of our thoughts. Well, tonight, what we're going to do is show you why what you think or do or feel is an indication of what you really are. Thought is energy, and energy is power. And it is because all the religions, sciences, and philosophies with which the world has been familiar with have been based upon the manifestation of that energy instead of the energy itself. That the world has been limited to effects while causes have been ignored or misunderstood. For this reason, we have God and the devil in religion, positive and negative in science, and good and bad in philosophy. You know, the winner inside reverses the process. It's interested only in cause. And the letters that I've gotten back from the different people that I've taught this course to indicated conclusively that many of the people were finding the cause whereby uh, that they could, actually start to begin to secure for themselves, the health and harmony, the abundance, and whatever else it was that they needed for their welfare and happiness. Life is expressive, and it's our business to express ourselves in a harmoniously and constructively way. Sorrow, excuse me, sorrow, misery, unhappiness, disease, and poverty are not necessities, and we're constantly eliminating them. But the process of eliminating consists in rising above and beyond any limitation of any kind. The person who has strengthened and purified his thought doesn't have to concern himself about microbes. And the person who has come into the understanding of the law of abundance will automatically go to the source of supply. So it's thus that the fate, fortune, and destiny will be controlled as readily as a captain controls a ship, if you would, or an engineer controls his train. Well, in this message today, I want to speak to you about the eye of you is not the physical body. That is simply an instrument which the eye uses to carry out its purpose. The eye cannot be the mind, for the mind is simply another, if you would, instrument which the eye uses. I mean, it's a tool which to think and reason and plan. The eye then must be something which controls and directs the body and the mind, something which determines what they shall do and how they shall act. When you come into a realization of the true nature of this thing we call I, you will enjoy a sense of power which you've never known before. Your personality is made up of countless individual characteristics, peculiarities, habits, and traits of character. And these are all a result of your former, if you would, method of thinking. But you know what? They have nothing to do with the real I of the body. When you say, if you would, I think, the I tells the mind what it shall think. When you say, I go, the I tells the physical body where it shall go. The real nature of this I is spiritual. and is the source of the real power which comes to all men and women when they come into a realization of your own true nature. You know, the greatest and most marvelous power which this I has been given is the power to think. But you know what I found throughout life is few people know how to think constructively or correctly. And consequently, they achieve only small or indifferent results. Most people allow their thoughts to dwell, if you would, and kind of extreme, on selfish purposes. And you know, if you stop and think about that, it's the inevitable result of an infantile mind. You know, when a mind becomes mature, it understands that, if you would, the germ of defeat is in every selfish thought. The trained mind knows that every transaction must benefit every person who is any way connected with it, and any attempt to profit by the weakness or ignorance or necessity of another will always and inevitably operate to your disadvantage. Now, this is because the individual is part of the whole or the universe. A part cannot antagonize any other part. But on the contrary, the welfare of each part depends upon a recognition of the interest of the whole picture. You know, for those of you who recognize this principle, you have a great advantage in the affairs of life. You don't wear yourselves out. You can eliminate vagrant thoughts with facility. You can readily concentrate to the highest possible degree on any subject. You don't waste time or money upon objects which can be of no possible benefit to yourselves. And if you cannot do these things, then it's because to this point, you've not made the necessary effort. You know, now is the time to make the effort. And the result of that effort will be exactly in proportion to the effort that you put forth. I guess one of the strongest affirmations which you can use for the purpose of strengthening your will and understanding and realizing your power is to accomplish is I am what I'm now becoming. Or I can be what I will myself to be. Now think of that. One of the strongest affirmations which you can use for that purpose of strengthening your will and realizing your power to accomplish anything you want is I am what I am now becoming, and I can be what I will to be. You know, I want you to, every time you repeat it, to realize who and what the I is. Try to come into a complete understanding, a thorough understanding of the true nature of the I. If you do, you will become invincible. That is, provided that your objects and purposes are constructive and are in harmony with the creative principles of the universe. If you make use of the affirmation I just gave you and use it continuously, night and morning, and as often during the day as you think of it, and continue to do so until it becomes a part of you and form the habit, you will see amazing changes and results. But unless you do this, you'd better not start at all. Modern psychology tells us that when we start something and do not complete it, or make a resolution and do not keep it, that all we're doing is forming the habit of failure. I mean, absolute, ignominious failure. If you do not intend to do a thing, do not start. And if you do start, see it through, even if the heavens fall down, if you would. If you make up your mind to do something, do it. Let nothing or no one interfere. The I in you has determined the thing is settled. The die, if you would, is cast, and there's no longer any argument. You've made your choice to do it. If you carry out this idea, beginning with small things, which you know you can control, and gradually increase the effort, but never understand any circumstances allowing your eye to be overruled, you'll find that you can eventually control yourself. And many men and women that I've encountered have found to their sorrow that it's easier to control the whole world than to control the I, you. But when you've learned to control yourself, that is when you'll have found the world within, which controls the world without, as we know. You will have become irresistible. Men and things will respond to your every wish without any apparent effort on your part. It's not so strange or impossible as it may appear when you remember that the world within is controlled by the I, and that this I is a part or one with the infinite I, which is a universal energy or spirit that we usually call God. This is not a mere statement or theory made for the purpose of confirming or establishing an idea, but it is a fact which has been accepted by the best religious thought as well as the best scientific thought. I remember reading a quotation by a gentleman, and his last name was Spencer, Herbert Spencer, I believe it was, for lack of anything else. Let's just say Spencer said that amid all the mysteries by which we are surrounded, nothing is more certain than that we are ever in the presence of an infinite and eternal energy from which all things flow and proceed. I thought about that for quite a while, and I said, that makes sense because the world never stops turning. Time doesn't ever stop. And certainly the environment that we're in never stops changing. I remember that a man by the name of Abbott was addressing an alumni of Bangor Theological Seminary and said, "We are coming to think of God as dwelling in man rather than as operating on men from without." And that gave me pause for thought. You know, we look around us and we think that the whole world controls everything we do. But that process is coming from a limited mind. The universal mind is all-consuming. It's infinite in its structure. Its totality is, I would say, how would I want to say that? The totality of the universal mind is the combined thought of all that's put forth, whether good or bad, whether in love or hatred, in kindness or in mayhem. Excuse me. So, but we always look at it from an outward view. We're looking at it and saying, well, why did God do this? Or why did God do that? Or why is this? Or why, oh is me, woe is me? Why is this happening? You know, God dwells inside of you. He operates on you from the inside, not from without. Science goes a little way in its search and stops. Science finds the ever-present eternal energy. But religion, regardless of what it is, finds the power behind that energy and locates it within you as a human being. You know, by no means is this a new discovery. For those of you that are Christian, the Bible says exactly the same thing. And that language is just as plain and convincing. And I know you've heard it several times, but maybe it never came into true light. Know ye not that ye are the temple of the living God? Here then is the secret of the wonderful creative power of the world within. Here is the secret of power, of mastery. To overcome does not mean to go without things. You know, self-denial is not success. We cannot give unless we get. We cannot be helpful unless we're strong. The infinite is not a bankrupt. And we who are the representatives of the infinite power should not be bankrupts either, if you would. And if we wish to be of service to others, we must have power and more power. But to get it, guess what? We must give it. We must be of service. Have an attitude of servitude is what creates the power within. You know, the more we give, the more we get. We have to become like a channel whereby the universe can express activity. The universal is constantly seeking to express itself, to be of service. And it seeks the channel whereby it can find the greatest activity, where it can do, if you would, the most good, where it can be of the greatest service to mankind as a whole. The universal cannot express through you as long as you're busy with your plans, your own purposes. Quiet the senses, seek inspiration, focus the mental activity on the within. We spoke of all those things. Dwell in the consciousness of your unity with omnipotence. You know, still water runs deep. We need to contemplate the multitudinous opportunities to which you have spiritual access by the omnipresence and power. You know, if you visualize the events, circumstances, or the conditions which all of these spiritual connections may assist in manifesting, realize the fact that the essence of soul and soul of all things is spiritual, and that the spiritual is the real, because let me say it this way, because it's the life of all there is. When the spirit is gone, the life is gone. It is dead. It ceases to exist. Now, what I'm talking about is these mental activities pertain to the world within, to the world of cause and conditions and circumstances which result are the effect that you see out in your life. Cause, effect. Cause, effect. So in essence, if you really wanted to look at it in a simplified way, you become a creator. Now, that's important work. And the higher and loftier and grander and more noble your ideals which you can conceive in your mind, then the more important the work that will become. Overwork or overplay or over bodily activity of any kind will always produce conditions of mental apathy and stagnation, which make it impossible to do the more important work, which results in a realization of conscious power. It's impossible to do the more important work which results in that realization of conscious power, unless and therefore we seek the silence frequently. Power comes through, for lack of a better word, power comes through repose. It is in the silence that we can be still, and when we are still, we can think. And thought is the secret of all attainment. Thought is a mode of motion and is carried by the law of vibration, if you would. The same as light or electricity, thought is given vitality by the emotions through the law of love. It takes form and expression by the law of growth. It's a product of the, if you would, spiritual eye within. Hence, it's divine, it's spiritual, and it's creative nature. So if we look at this from this, it's evident that in order to express power, abundance, or any other constructive purpose, The emotions must be called upon to give feeling to the thought so that it'll take form. Well, you say, Dr. King, how can I accomplish that? How may this purpose be accomplished? Well, this is the vital point. How may we develop the faith, the courage, the feeling, which will result in that? You know, I'm going to tell you something. It's so simple that it will amaze you. And my simple reply is by exercise. You know, mental strength is secured in exactly the same way that physical strength is secured, by exercise. When we exercise the body, it becomes stronger and develops. When we exercise the mind, then naturally it has the same effect as exercising the body. You know, when we think something, perhaps with difficulty the first time, we think the same thing again and it becomes easier this time. We think it again and again, and then it becomes a mental habit. So if we think we can't succeed, if we take a look at an issue, let me break this down. If we took a look at an issue and we say, oh my God, I could never do that, or I don't, that's too hard for me. You know, that's the exact thing that leads to our defeat. You know, the first time we thought about it, it was difficult at first. Now, if we take and we look at it again, we say, well, maybe I could do part of that, but I might not be able to do it all. And then perhaps we get subtly involved and we say, well, you know, this isn't so hard after all. And we think about it again and we say, well, I don't know what I was thinking. I can do this. I don't know why I ever thought it was impossible to begin with. So think about this. When we think something over and over again, whether it be good or bad, it falls in line with the statement, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. If you think you can do something, then you surely can. And if you think you can't do it, you've already told yourself no, then be assured of one thing, you won't. It's the mental habits that we form that affect our outcome, our effect. As I ponder a lot of things, I realize that mental habits are those things that we continue to think the same thing over and over. And finally, it just becomes automatic. And we can no longer help thinking it because it becomes so habitual in nature. And if it's good for us, then that's going to lead to a great effect. But if it's not so good for us, then it's going to lead to failure and our demise. So we need to be positive of what we think. There's no longer any doubt about it. We have to be positive in our thoughts, positive in our nature. We need to give to get. We need to realize that the world within is our cause. and the world without and what feeds back to us is the effect of that whole process. I had some comments about this course that, wow, that's really deep. I had some comments that this was too advanced for you. I had some comments that said, those people don't really care about all that. But let me tell you something. I had other comments that said, Dr. King, you have empowered me in a way that I've never thought about. Dr. King, you have opened my mind to the possibilities of being a true success. What I'm teaching you is this is advanced mindset, if you would. It is very deep. It is very thought-provoking, laborsome, if you would, in mental processing. But if you garner just enough from this to understand the balance of you and how you interrelate with the universe and how you interrelate with your own little world inside of this huge universe, you will become one of the most powerful people that you've ever thought of becoming. So let's get back on the topic and say, then, that it's evident that in order to express power, abundance, or any other constructive purpose, that our emotions must be called upon to give feeling to the thought so that it'll take form. How can you accomplish it? Well, it's a vital point. How may we develop the faith, the courage, the feeling, which will result in the accomplishment? And that's to exercise the mind toward what you desire and want in such a way that it creates a habit and mental strength. I think that you notice, I think, the inside me thinks, therefore it is. I believe, therefore I am. Finally, it becomes automatic. I no longer have to think about I am, I believe. It becomes a part of my everyday meaning. We're now positive of one thing for sure. I am what I'm now becoming. And what I want and will, by my mind's power, will be as I continue to exercise and become a part of that. Last week I asked you, well, 2 weeks ago, I should say, I asked you to relax, to let go physically. But this week I'm going to ask you to let go mentally. If you practice the exercise given to you last week, 15 or 20 minutes a day in accordance with how I told you to do it, you can no doubt relax physically. And anyone who cannot consciously do this quickly and completely, then you've not mastered yourself. You've not obtained freedom. You're still a slave to your conditions within, such as hatred, anger, worry, jealousy, envy. I could go on and on. Sorrow. trouble, or disappointment of any kind. You know, you may say that you can't let go of these things, but you can. I promise you, you can. You can do so by mentally determining to do so, by voluntary intention and persistence. You know, the reason that some people can't do it is because they allow themselves to be controlled by the emotions, their own emotions, rather than their intelligence. But for those people who will be guided by their intelligence, they're the ones that are going to gain the victory. You know, you will not succeed the first time you try. But as we found out, practice leads us into, if you would, the old saying, practice makes perfect. Now, let me say something. In this, as in everything else, you must succeed in dismissing and eliminating and completely destroying those negative and destructive thoughts, because they are the seed which is constantly germinating into discordant conditions, to conditions of discord of every conceivable kind and description. I don't think there's anything truer than that the quality of our thought, which we entertain, has a direct correlation to certain externals in the outside world. It's the law which there's no escape. And it's this law, this correlative of the thought with its object, how they correlate, how the thought and the object correlate, that from time and time immemorial, I guess is the proper word I should use, has led the people to believe in a special providence. I hope that in some way you will take the time to look at the I inside of you, the all-consuming I, the center of you. I could be the I, or simple little I that you see written. But most of all, the I is you. It's the within you, not the without you. The without you is the effect of the I within. We found tonight that service, positive thinking, we are what we believe, that mentally we need to let go of all of the transgressive thoughts such as hatred and anger and fear and discord. And we found that it wasn't going to be an easy process, and that the first time we tried it might not work. But that if we will repeat the process till it becomes a habit of thinking in a positive way, that life lays before us in abundance, and we're the masters of our destiny. I'll leave you with that. Let's work on that this week as we move forward to our next lesson. Let's work on manifesting positive thoughts. Let's work on controlling our mind from within, each of you. So I'll leave you with a few questions. What is thought? How is it carried? How do we give thought vitality? And how does it take form? What's the secret of its creative power? And in that, what is the secret of power? How may we develop the faith, courage, and enthusiasm which will result in accomplishment? Why is it so? Something that you may have overlooked. What is the silence? And of what value is it? I'm Dr. David King. This is Lesson 4, The Winner Inside, Releasing the Invincible You. Thank you all for coming tonight. Please invite everybody you know. Please let your downlines know that this is not a hard course, because I'm going to make it as simple, so simple that a child can understand by the time I'm done. God bless each and every one of you. I look forward to being with you each and every week. Don't forget, please, send me in your questions. Send me in also the times that would be better for your country, that we might do some seminars directly related to SFI and to teach those new affiliates you have a positive mindset and the basics of how to progress in SFI and grow their business. I'm looking forward to that. Take care until next week. Remember, the cause is you, the effect is what you receive. I am what I am now becoming. I can be, can have all the things that I want because I will it to be so. God bless. Good night.